year is 2005, and we have to prepare for the fantastic.
Exposure to a high-energy cosmic storm could advance our knowledge about planetary life.
To our future.
I don't trust him.
We got what we wanted.
Just worried about what he wants.
Your entire biophysical structure is changing.
It's terrible news.
I think I'll get a second opinion.
The cloud has fundamentally altered our DNA. That's gross.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Random Rewatch. This is Mike, and with the upcoming Fantastic Four First Steps release, we are taking a look back at the OG Fantastic Four movie. No, not the 1994 Roger Corman unreleased film, the one that actually made it into theaters. This is the 2005 Fantastic Four movie directed by Tim Story, starring Ian Grufford, Jessica Alba, Chris Evans, and Michael Chiklis. Let's get into it. So the Fantastic Four goes back to 1961, Marvel Comics. They were created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, and they really were Marvel's premier property through the 60s and 70s. They were bigger than just about every other character or character set that Marvel had at the time. Film rights for Fantastic Four became available in 1986, and they went to a guy named Bernard Eichinger and Constantine Films, which is a German film company. They had a difficult time getting financing in order to get a film off the ground. Eichinger was looking at about a $40 or $50 million budget at the time. He had a couple of studios that were interested in it, but they thought the money was a little strong, which, I mean, $40, $50 million in the late 80s is a lot of money. When you figure that, like, Return of the Jedi was made for $35 million. Constantine Film had 5 years from the time they were assigned the rights to get a film made, which would put them at the end of 1992. They had until December 31st, 1992 to get a film made, or they would lose the rights and basically have wasted the $250,000 that they spent on it. So Eichinger went to Roger Corman, who was well known for making like these cheap B-movie pop cinema things. He was kind of the king of schlock movies at the time, and they agreed to spend $1 million to just put something in the can and keep the rights of the film. So they made a movie in 1992, or at least they started production of it. It was released, it was finished in 1994, and it was never released. There was a trailer that was put out. It had almost nobody who ever heard of in it, and it was, like I said, it was never released. And it was what's known as an ashcan copy, meaning it was a film that was made by a producer solely for the purpose of keeping the rights of a licensed character, with no intention of actually having the film released. 20th Century Fox went out and bought the negative so that they could get the rights to the Fantastic Four, and then they started to work on production for a proper film. The trailer for the 1994 movie is on YouTube. You should really go watch it. It's fantastic. In 1995, Fox hired Chris Columbus, who had written a bunch of movies in the 80s, had directed Home Alone, Home Alone 2. This is Doubtfire. They brought him in to write it along with Michael France. He was originally going to direct it, but he decided that he actually didn't want to direct it. He wanted to focus on producing it. They brought in Peter Siegel, who was known for films like Naked Gun 33 1/3, Tommy Boy, The Nutty Professor 2, 50 First Dates. They brought him in to direct. He was attached to the project for less than a year. Then they brought in Sam Wiseman. They had writers come in and redo the script. By 1999, they still hadn't really gotten much of anywhere with it. So Eichinger and Fox had to go back to Marvel. They had to negotiate an extension to their rights deal, which they did. They brought in Raja Gosnell to direct, but he wound up dropping out. So by 2001, they still didn't have a director, and they signed Peyton Reed to come in and direct. He would go on to direct Ant-Man for Marvel. He worked on the film for a little over a year, wound up casting quite a bit of the film. Originally, Mads Mikkelsen had come in to read for Reed Richards. He was considered to be a front runner, but Peyton Reed wanted Ian Gruffudd. I really hope I'm pronouncing that right. He wanted Ian Gruffudd, and I believe under Peyton Reed that they brought in Jessica Alba and Chris Evans and Michael Chiklis. We'll talk about them as their characters come up. Peyton Reed eventually dropped out in 2003 because he had a very different vision for the film than Fox did, and also he was worried because Fox was really set on a 2005 release date, and he wasn't sure that the film could be done in time. Sean Astin from Lord of the Rings was in the running to direct, but eventually Tim Story, who had done a couple of films, he was mainly known for doing Barbershop with Ice Cube and Anthony Anderson. So that tells you really kind of what you need to know about what the tone of this movie is going to be. So Tim Story came in about 2004. Apparently Simon Kinberg wrote a couple of uncredited drafts of the script. Story apparently was affected by seeing The Incredibles because the story that they were working on turned out to be very similar to what The Incredibles was. So they had to make some changes so that it wasn't basically a live action version of The Incredibles. That's it on pre-production. Let's get into this film. So we open up and we meet Reed Richards and Ben Grimm, who are getting ready to make a presentation for a scientific expedition. As I said, Reed Richards, played by Ian Gruffudd. He was known at the time for a real small role in Titanic, for a film called Wild. He was in Black Hawk Down. He was in 102 Dalmatians. But this is really his first kind of big film. Michael Chiklis, who played Ben Grimm, was mainly known at the point for playing Vic Mackey on the TV series The Shield. He was also fairly well known for his first film, 1989's Wired, which is a biography of John Belushi, where he played John Belushi. So we find out that Reed wants to study a cosmic storm that is coming through the solar system, and because it may have very profound effects on health, science, disease, that type of thing, because he believes that a similar storm was really the foundation of the creation of life on Earth. And he is making the pitch to Victor Von Doom. Victor here is played by Julian McMahon, who, as of the time of recording this, passed away about 2 weeks ago. He had done a few films at this point, but he was mainly known for his TV work. He had a main role in a crime procedural called Profiler. He had a regular role on Charmed, and he was the lead on a popular series at the time called Nip Tuck about a plastic surgeon. Other than Chiklis, he was arguably the best known member of the cast. Ben and Reed meet with Victor and they make their pitch.
That exposure to a high-energy cosmic storm born on solar winds might have triggered the evolution of early planetary life. In 6 weeks, another cloud with the same elemental profile will pass Earth's orbit. A study conducted in space could fundamentally advance our knowledge about the structure of the human genome, cure countless diseases.
Victor is severely underwhelmed and underimpressed. You get this feeling that he and Reed have a past. We also meet Sue Storm, who Reed definitely has a past with, and she is played by Jessica Alba. When Sean Astin was in talks, his vision was to have Christina Aguilera play this, but they wound up going with Jessica Alba. She was at the time probably best known for a TV series called Dark Angel, where she was the lead, which was like this dystopian science fiction thing where she played a super soldier who was trying to like escape the government. She was also in a mid-90s TV revival of the TV series Flipper, and she had done a few films. As I said, obviously her and Reed have had a past, and you get the feeling that their relationship did not end well. As I said, Victor's not particularly impressed. Julian McMahon really plays this role like very low-key, very kind of monotone in most of his dialogue. One of the early runners for this, and probably the alternative sliding door actor for this, is Robert Downey Jr. He had auditioned for this role, and was being very seriously considered. I would imagine this would have been a much, much different film with RDJ in this role. Julian Mann, like I said, he's really low-key, very monotone, very kind of quiet until he really starts to get amped up at the end. And this may be one of these things where he's just leaving a lot on the table so he has somewhere to go later in the film. His voice also sounds really kind of weird in the film. It's almost like the entire film, all of his dialogue is ADR'd, meaning that it was recorded later. It just doesn't sound like it's real in the room. I mean, maybe that's just the way that they chose to record it, but like I said, he's not having any of it, and he's thinking that, Reed's just coming to him because he happens to own a space station.
The storm is deadly, but the shields on your station's control room are designed to protect any occupants inside.
So it's not just my money you want. It's my toys. Tell me, if NASA doesn't trust you, then why should I?
But anyway, Victor finally agrees. Sue is going to be involved in the project, as well as Sue's brother, Johnny. Johnny Storm, played here, obviously, by a very young, unknown Chris Evans. Chris, at this point, not known for much. Probably his biggest movie was Not Another Teen Movie in 2001. He'd been in a couple other things, one unreleased film, an educational film, a movie called The Perfect Score. But this was really kind of his coming out, and then he would have the sequel. His next film would be Rise of the Silver Surfer. His career kind of took off after that. And then we, of course, get him as Steve Rogers. Johnny has a past with Ben. Ben apparently used to be his CO. Ben is not particularly happy to have Johnny on board.
Can't do it. Cannot do it.
External SRBs, orbital system engines. It's just like the shuttle
No.
you flew.
I cannot take orders from the underwear model.
Oh, come on now.
That
Ben.
wingnut washed out of NASA for sneaking 2 Victoria's Secret wannabes into a flight simulator.
Youthful high spirits.
They crashed it into a wall. A flight simulator.
When have I ever asked?
It becomes painfully obvious that Reed is very focused on his work and doesn't notice Sue as a woman, I guess, which is probably what led to their breaking up. He just gets very distracted, doesn't notice the extremely obvious cues that she's giving him. So anyway, they wind up going up on the space mission. They get to the space station. There is the storm that comes, and you have this big action sequence where the storm comes, blows through the shield. You see everybody gets hit by it. You get the idea where they get their powers. Like Johnny is engulfed in flame. Ben gets hit by a bunch of rocks. Reed has to reach out and stretch to reach something. Sue gets hit by these energy fields. And so you get here's this kind of in-your-face idea of why they have different powers. Victor's also there, and he gets hit with, electricity and stuff. And then we wind up cutting kind of away from that and back to some kind of medical facility where they've made it home. They're under treatment for whatever happened to them, but nobody's really telling us what happened to Ben. There's this cutesy little scene where Johnny comes up to Ben. He's like, oh, I can't believe it, blah, blah, blah. And Ben's like, what happened to me? And he's like, holds a mirror and he's like hesitating. You're like, oh man, he's the thing, but it's just, he's fine. And Johnny's just kind of ripping on him. So you get an idea of what these two's relationship is. Meanwhile, Victor meets with his board of directors, and of course they're annoyed at him, and the company's losing money, and they're looking to get him out. And there's a conflict between him and the head of the board.
Well, Victor, the bank would like to congratulate you on the fastest free fall since the Depression. We can't even give your stock away.
You know I can turn this around?
Well, you're going to have to, Victor, or we pull out. You have a week.
You're enjoying this, aren't you, Ned?
We wind up back at the medical clinic, and Johnny is cooped up in there, and he's got to get out of there, so he decides he's going to go skiing. So he has a conversation with one of the nurses. This is Access Hollywood and E! News correspondent Maria Menounos, who you may have recognized from one of her many red carpet interviews or something that she's hosted on TV. She's kind of one of these TV host personalities who bops around from project to project. This is her first movie. She's been in a couple of other movies, as well as done some TV stuff. A lot of times she plays herself in the movies. Anyway, so she's trying to stop Johnny, and she does a vital sign test on him, and she noticed that there seems to be a problem with the temperature.
This is not a ski resort.
Not yet. Luckily, Grandma still sends care packages, though. You know, it's amazing. For an 80-year-old woman, you'd be surprised.
You are trouble.
Trouble is my middle name.
Oh, you're hot.
Why, thank you. So are you. And I'm not afraid to cry.
No, I mean you feel a little feverish.
Well, I've never felt better in my life. My God, you smell good. Listen, when do you get off work?
4, but
Tell you what.
So now we start to see changes in all the people. Johnny obviously can set himself on fire. As he's going down skiing, his clothes start to burn off. Ben turns into the rock monster. We find out that Sue can become invisible and can make other things invisible and can generate energy fields. Reed can stretch his body, and Johnny obviously has got the fire thing. Reed determines that the storm must have altered their DNA. Johnny is completely thrilled with that. Everybody else is less so.
But everywhere. It was everywhere. What?
The cloud has fundamentally altered our DNA.
Cool!
We need to find Ben.
And you know what, guys? I think I was fine.
They do, a couple scenes with Ben where they're not really showing you the full thing yet. And he winds up jumping out a window and escaping. And we find out that he is going home to New York to see his, I don't know if it's his wife or his fiance. But eventually he winds up getting to her, and we see the full-on thing. I got to say, this is probably the best part of the movie is Ben and the thing. This is mostly makeup and prosthetics. There is some digital enhancement in some of his action sequences, but this is Michael Chiklis acting through all these prosthetics, and throughout the whole movie, he is really great. This is such a great effect that they have on him. I think the suit was done by Spectral Motion. It was mostly foam latex. It weighed like 35 pounds or so. Took Chiklis 4 hours every day to get into it. He thought it was very claustrophobic. But being under the weight of that suit and having to wear it informed his performance in a lot of ways. There were mechanical hands that he would put his hand into, but it was bigger and wider with the big fat fingers. So his hands were controlling the mechanical hand inside the suit. And then he had face makeup on and then a cowl piece that went over it. It's really an incredible effect. I mean, if they could do this 20 years ago with practical effects, and I think it looks way better than, honestly, if you look at like the Hulk in Marvel movies and the MCU movies, I almost think this looks way better than that. But anyway, Debbie decides she's going to leave him. I think it's Debbie. She decides she's going to leave him. And he decides he's going to go jump off a bridge. But there's already a guy jumping off a bridge. And so he saves the guy. And then there's this whole sequence on the bridge where somehow a fire truck winds up falling off the bridge. And the four of them are there. And they save the firemen. But they like reveal their powers at the same time. And then they wind up on TV, and they're trying to be like, no, we're not anything special. We're just scientists, and we're just trying to, fix this. And then the fire chief is like, oh, it's too late for that. You guys are already celebrities.
Ladder truck became part of the tragedy, but the rescue itself is not the story. One of the four stretched to an amazing length.
That's what they're calling it. The Fantastic Four. Cool.
No, wait. Where are you going?
I'm gonna go talk to him.
No. We should think this through.
That's great. Brainstorm.
Meanwhile, Victor is having more problems with his board, and the board decides they're going to actually remove him from the company. So Reed and the others move into the Baxter building, which Reed apparently owns. And Victor is weirdly watching them because he has the building wired with cameras. But anyway, we wind up with this, fairly cool sciencey montage where Reed is testing the limits of everybody's ability, including Johnny's. He builds this box that Johnny can go in and try to get as hot as he can. And apparently Johnny's powers are pretty profound.
You guys are cramping my style.
Johnny, you were at 4,000 Kelvin. Any hotter and you're approaching supernova.
Sweet.
No, not sweet. That's the temperature of the sun.
Not only could you kill yourself, but you could set fire to Earth's atmosphere and destroy all human life as we know it.
Got it. Supernova. Bad.
We also see that Victor is getting increasingly unhinged. He starts to have these effects where you see like bits of his skin are starting to flake off, and he's got like a metallic substance underneath it. And he is apparently getting very short-tempered. He winds up having this argument with Reed.
Didn't go as planned. It was a catastrophe. You ruined the lives of 4 people.
With all due respect, we're both to blame. I told you to abort.
Abort? I put my company, my name, billions of dollars on the line. I will not let you make me look like a fool.
Victor, if we could understand...
I don't want to understand it! This isn't one of your science projects. I just want to fix it. Fast.
And we see that when he gets angry or emotional, that the lights start to flicker. So he's obviously got some electrical thing going on. He winds up killing Ned, who is the head of the board who had ousted him. He tracks him down on a parking garage and kills him. Reed winds up making these uniforms that can adapt with everybody's powers. So, his stretches, Sue's can phase out so she doesn't have to walk around naked, I guess. And Johnny's can handle his heat. Johnny winds up, again, being cooped up, so he goes out into a motocross event. I guess he's famous enough that they just let him ride a motorcycle. He winds up doing this jump and then lighting himself on fire. And then they wind up interviewing him, and he comes up with the names for the team, much to their disappointment.
What are your superhero names?
They call me the Human Torch. Ladies call me Torch.
What about the rest of the team?
That's the Invisible Girl.
What about your leader, Reed Richards? I hear you call him Mr. Fantastic.
Could have been worse.
Is it true what they say about him, that he can expand any part of his anatomy?
Well, I've always found him to be a little limp.
What is that? What do you call that thing?
That's it. The Thing.
So anyway, the team shows up there and they start to have this argument. I got to wonder why they're just doing this out in public in front of all these people and TV cameras and stuff. Why are they just not like, let's go in this other room, or we'll take this back to the Baxter building, whatever. But no, they're just hashing this out right out in front of everybody. And, there's this sense that Johnny likes who he is and likes this thing while everybody else does not, especially, obviously, Ben and his circumstance.
You gave us names? You don't think. So now you're the face of the Fantastic Four?
A face that's about to be broken.
Look, this isn't permanent, Johnny. We need to be careful until we're normal again.
What if I don't want to be normal? I didn't turn into a monster.
In between this, we're cutting back to Victor, and Victor's working on his own stuff and figuring out what the limits of his powers are. Ben winds up going to a bar in Brooklyn and meeting Alicia.
So sad. Being different isn't always a bad thing.
Trust me, this ain't one of them times.
Not if you don't want it to be.
Who is played by Kerry Washington. Kerry Washington in 2005 is having a pretty good year. She's got this film. She's also in Mr. and Mrs. Smith, the Brad Pitt, Angelina Jolie film. She's got a recurring character in Boston Legal. She's been in a bunch of TV series, a couple of small movies. Obviously, she's going to hit it big in 2012 with her lead in the TV series Scandal, but she's got a pretty solid career. We cut back to Victor. He's still working on his stuff, but we see this mask that he has from his home country of Latveria, which is, a fictional country that Victor is from. somewhere in between Hungary and Serbia and Bulgaria, like over in that area. Obviously, the mask is going to come and play later. Victor is obviously, he's trying to drive a wedge in between Ben and Reed. He's trying to kind of fracture the team a little bit. I think he sees Ben as the weak spot because Ben wants to get back to normal more than the rest of them because he can't walk around normally. You've got Johnny who wants to stay the way he is. Reed is trying to fix them and get them back to where they were. And I think Victor is looking for a place to, or a way to use that technology to expand his power. Ben and Johnny continue to have these fights. There's this one funny little sequence where Johnny comes out of the elevator and he's like, look, they made action figures of us. And he holds up like the Thing action figure. And the funny part is that it's very much looks like the Thing from the 1994 movie. It's even got a little voice.
Hey, look what the marketing guys did. Look, check it out. Listen. You love this.
It's clobberin time!
It's catchy, right?
So Reed decides he's going to test the chamber. He tests it on himself. It doesn't really work. He winds up kind of turning into soft rubber to where he can't even stand, and he comes to realize that he needs more power. Victor, of course, is listening, so Victor says, oh, more power. And he realizes he thinks he's got a way in. So Victor manipulates Ben to get into the chamber.
Lose something that you love, to see it slip away and know it's never coming back.
Look, Rita's gonna fix me up, okay?
For your sake, I hope you're right. Look, he's a brilliant man. We should all trust that he's working as hard as he can. You're his best friend. So what possible reason could he have for taking his time? I mean, other than spending more time with Sue.
He reduces Ben back to his normal self, which takes the strongest member of the team off. But in the meantime, he also absorbs more energy from the artificial solar storm that Reed has created. So now he's got like kind of this unlimited power thing going on. But it's really affected him, and his face is really kind of coming apart. So when he goes back to his place, he sees the mask and he smashes the case. And now he puts the classic Doom mask on. And that's going to set us up for our final fight. The team confronts him. They don't have Ben, but Ben knows what's going on, and he's full of regrets. So he winds up putting himself back into the machine and turning himself back into the Thing. But the rest of the team, they're fighting Victor. And now we come up with this, the first half of this kind of tropey, science-y thing where Victor goes to Reed what happens when rubber gets superheated, and then he blasts Reed with an electric beam.
What did you do?
Exactly what I said I would. I built a better, stronger being and outsmarted the great Reed Richards.
If you've exposed yourself to the storm, you're endangering your life. You need help.
You always know best. So tell me, what happens when you superheat rubber?
Victor's got Reed, and at one point he's like got him prisoner and he's strapped in a chair, and he's like, what happens when you super cool rubber? And he's got this hyper cooling machine that he had taken out of his warehouse. But Sue sneaks in and she's invisible, and she releases Reed, and they're fighting.
Dr. Richards, allow me to begin your lesson. Chemistry 101. What happens to rubber when it's supercooled? Give up?
Victor's got the mask. He puts the mask on and his hood. And now you get the classic Dr. Doom reveal.
Victor, please.
Call me Doom.
The machine works. It worked on Ben. It can work on you. We can turn you back.
Do you really think fate turned us into gods so we could refuse these gifts?
Victor, you always thought you were a god. Now back off.
Susan, let's not fight.
No, let's.
So they're all fighting. Ben shows back up, and they realize that they need to work together. Trope alert. They need to work together in order to defeat Doom. So Johnny goes and does the supernova thing, and Sue contains him with an energy field, and they get Victor super, super hot, so it burns all his clothes off, but his body's all metal now, and now it's glowing red metal, And now Reed turns it back on him and says,
"Is that the best you can do?"
Time for your lesson. Chem 101. What happens when you rapidly cool hot metal? Ben!
What do you get when you rapidly cool superheated metal and Thing kicks over a fire hydrant and Reed directs the water and they spray him, and basically what happens is they temper the metal to make it really, really hard so that Victor can't move. So Victor's still in there, but now he's basically frozen in one position. And Ben goes back to his traditional clobberin timeline.
It's time to end this.
No, baby, it's clobberin time.
That's basically it. They have a coda at the end where there's a celebration at the bar, and you see that Ben and Alicia are starting to have a relationship, and Reed proposes to Sue, and Victor is being shipped back to his country, and that's the end of the movie, and that's going to set us up for the next movie. So this film opened on July 8th, 2005. It was actually kicked back a week to get out of the way of Tom Cruise's War of the Worlds. It was supposed to open on July 1st or July 1st, but War of the Worlds had that day, so they decided to move it back a week. Did $56.1 million on its opening weekend. It wound up doing $154.7 domestically and $175.9 million internationally for a total of $330.6 million during its theatrical run on a budget of 87 to 100. There's a couple of different conflicting reports on what the total budget was. Probably some of it was amortization from the earlier films. We've talked about that before, how that works. I think it had either a re-release or it had a really wrong run, but it got some box office in early 2006 as well. It's got a 27 on Rotten Tomatoes. Guys, this is not a good movie. It's fine. It's serviceable. It's a good Sunday afternoon. I'm going to take a nap and put a movie on movie. It's got some amusing parts. Chris Evans, kind of a revelation in this film. You know, he's a guy that nobody really knew at this point, but this is by no stretch of the imagination a good movie. It's got a 40 on Metacritic. It's got a B on CineScore. Roger Ebert gave it 1 star. Roger seems really upset about the fact that these characters are really kind of downplaying these super dramatic changes to who they are. And they're worried about basically really minor stuff in the face of what they are capable of. He says, I wasn't watching Fantastic Four to study it, but to be entertained by it. But how could I be amazed by a movie that makes its own characters so indifferent about themselves? Are these people complete idiots? The entire nature of their existence has radically changed, and they're about as excited as if they got a makeover on Oprah. Yeah, so Roger, not impressed. Most of the other critics weren't impressed as well. It did get a Saturn nomination for Best Picture. It lost to Revenge of the Sith. It did get a couple of MTV Movie Awards. Remember those things? Those used to be a big deal. It did get 2 MTV Movie Award nominations. Best Hero for Jessica Alba, who lost to Christian Bale for Batman Begins, and Best On-Screen Team, which it lost to, and I'm not making this up, Vince Vaughn and Owen Wilson in Wedding Crashers. The Wedding Crashers are a better team than the Fantastic Four. Jessica Alba did get a Razzie nomination for Worst Actress. It was a combination nomination for Into the Blue and this film, but she wound up losing to Jenny McCarthy for Dirty Love. But the film did win a Stinker Award for the worst screenplay in a film over $100 million. So they got that trophy on the shelf. But as bad as this movie is, this thing is Gone with the Wind compared to the 2015 Josh Trank reimagining of Fantastic Four. Guys, I watched that film last night to prepare for recording this. I watched it so you don't have to. This film walks so that the 2015 film can fall off a cliff. It is awful on ways I can't even imagine. And the fact that you've got Michael B. Jordan, you've got Miles Teller, you've got Kate Mara, you've got Jamie Bell, you've got Tim Blake Nelson, and you still make maybe the most awful film of the year that year. Out of one of the best properties that Marvel has, I have no idea how that happens. Good news is that this director and cast came back in 2007, and they did Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer, which is a way better film than this one. And maybe someday we'll talk about that one. And as I'm recording it this week, we have Matt Shankman's Fantastic Four: First Steps is going to be released. So we are looking forward to that. That actually looks really good. So the future may be bright for the Fantastic Four. I just read a news story, a couple of news stories actually this week, where they're talking about how Reed Richards may wind up being the leader of the Avengers, not Sam Wilson, going forward into Phase 6 and beyond of the MCU. So the future may be right for the Fantastic Four, but at this point in its history, it's not that bright. So hopefully that new film is better. And if not, there's always 2035. Get it right. But that's it, guys. Thank you for listening. I really do appreciate it. Check out our YouTube channel. Look for a Movie Punditry Podcast. And we will catch you next time.